Now to Studio B, Channel 3's Aaron Connolly and Mark Zinn are standing by with our analysts for the take on the developments of the hour.
Yeah, well, things are changing by the minute.
They keep coming in, that's for sure.
Hi, you guys. Kevin Rennie's here, and of course, Kalila Brown-Dean, Quinnipiac professor. Kevin Rennie, a former legislator yourself, an attorney. I guess let's start first and foremost, Kevin, with your reaction to what's playing out here in Connecticut right now with the situation with our legislators.
Well, from what I'm hearing from people around the state, that it's not going very well for Republicans who had really high hopes, certainly going into the election today, but all year they'd had success with recruiting candidates. And also there is this feeling, as people have made reference to, that Governor Malloy was wildly unpopular, and that might show itself in some Republican gains in the legislature, which absolutely have not shown themselves tonight, because I think there are Republicans who were expected to win who are falling all around the state.
Kalila, we were talking earlier about the fact that Stefanowski has requested an injunction. This is a similar trend that we're actually seeing across the country by some Republican candidates.
We're seeing this particularly in big battleground states, places like Florida, Texas, North Carolina, and also Georgia, where people are saying they showed up to vote and they're being turned away. So that debate between what state officials are saying and what candidates are directing them to do is key. This is important, because it's a preview of what we should expect in the 2020 presidential election, but it's also a sign of what's happening in the courts and why that matters. We've had an 80% decrease in polling places in key places like Georgia. So fewer polling places mean longer wait times, and that often can discourage people from staying in line and voting when they are registered and eligible to do so.
I know nationally some of the races that folks have been keeping a close eye on. CBS News has called Joe Manchin Senate winner in very Republican West Virginia. My goodness, President Trump has gone there more times than I think any other state. Yeah, but a Democrat managed to pull it out there. A moderate Democrat, but still. Marsha Blackburn, CBS News calling as the winner in Tennessee. That's the race where Taylor Swift dipped her toe in the water this week and tried to encourage people to vote for her opponent. And Mike Braun, the Republican in Indiana, knocking off a sitting
That's a big
senator.
surprise.
Right, so these were things that they said Democrats needed to not have happen, right?
Yeah, you know, I think that when you have a wave election, it's usually not confined to the House of Representatives. You see it, you at least see some of the similar changes in the U.S. Senate as well. And we may be seeing changes in the U.S. Senate going in the opposite direction. That is, a couple of more Republicans than we started with when the night began, and many more Democrats in the House of Representatives. We may see a lot more Democratic governors, though. That may also evidence itself in this building great rebuke of Donald Trump.
What happens now? So let's say that is what happens tonight. Democrats in the House, Republicans in the Senate. You know, I was watching some folks on TV today saying there was a time when they'd come together and say, we've got to make something happen here. Do you anticipate that happening, or do you think the presidential race is going to start on January 1st?
You know, I think, you know, let's say the Democrats take the House. A lot of those new members and re-elected members, they know that their job, the reason they've won, is that they are to take it to Donald Trump and to start doing things like asking questions and requiring members of his administration to come before Congress and answer those questions. That congressional oversight will be revived, and that will be one of the reasons that they gain control of the House of Representatives, and so they need to start doing that.
Kalila, what do you make of the energy surrounding this election? Obviously, voter turnout very high nationally, also here in Connecticut. For decades, older people have been out to vote. Now we're seeing a lot of youth heading out to vote. Is this a post-Trump era kind of situation? Is that what's kind of catapulting this type of energy, or are there other things at play?
I think that President Trump looms large in this election for his supporters and his opponents. But beyond the president, I think people are thinking about issues in a very different way. So whether it's health care or immigration, whether it's access to education, so in places like West Virginia, when you had teachers go on strike to say this is not a partisan issue, this is a principled issue. That if we can't agree that every child deserves access to a quality public education and that teachers should be appropriately compensated, what are we doing this for? So that is sort of the momentum that's going to get people out who wouldn't usually go to the polls in a midterm because they would think my vote doesn't matter. If anyone questioned that, tonight is the night to know every vote matters.
And the bottom line, it seems that it's really resonating with people, the thought that there is a lot at stake in this particular election, despite it being a midterm.
Fear works. So whether fear is rational or irrational, if you can make people feel like if they don't do something, they're going to be, destroyed, their lives will be fundamentally changed, that gets people to the polls. The real question is what's going to happen tomorrow. Once the election is over and all of the campaign promises have been made, what are people going to do to carry out?
Talking about this youth vote, you see that play out perhaps nowhere better than in Texas right now, where this Ted Cruz race with this Beto O'Rourke, and right now CBS News is saying leans Republican, of course, not calling that race or anything like that. That's just what they're saying online. But the thinking there was that he would really pull these people in who'd maybe never even voted ever in their lives.
It does feel like in the last couple of years that politics has become a bigger part of our day-to-day life, and not in a good way.
Oh, it's exhausting.
It's exhausting, and it does, it does cause some of that anxiety. But this is why we have frequent elections in the United States, so that if a rebuke needs to be administered, we can do it in 2 years, and we can do it in an emphatic way.
Some great points. Kevin Kalila, thank you so much. Of course, we'll be checking back in with you throughout the night.
All right.